I wanted to talk a little bit about Pine Tree first, just so you have an idea of who we are and what we do. We provide legal assistance. The Bangor office covers Penobscot, Piscataquis, and Waldo counties. We have offices throughout the state. We also have an office in Aroostook County. We have an office in Machias. And we cover legal questions in certain categories. So there's only a few kinds of cases that we cannot take, and I put those in the red box. We can't handle criminal cases, and we only handle family matters that are referred to us through domestic violence resource programs. So a bunch of my work primarily is public benefits like general assistance, evictions. We do a lot of housing work. We do a lot of warranty of habitability, subsidized housing issues, that kind of thing, and debt collection. So small claims court sometimes, particularly in the collections context. And we do lots of work, like I said, with evictions, but we also handle cases in mobile home parks throughout the state. So I just wanted to let you guys know how you can reach us. If any clients are interested in, we can provide sort of a range of services. So anything from just advice over the phone about a legal question to full representation in court, depending on the circumstances, depending on our resources and our capacity at any given time. But
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is it income-based? Does somebody have to qualify for your services for free because of their income?
Right, so we only assist low-income Mainers. There's an intake process, and we ask questions about your income sources and assets primarily to determine eligibility. There's some flexibility there, so nobody should be worried about coming in if they think that they wouldn't qualify, if they think that they make too much money, or if they have, you know, a second property that's an asset and they're worried that they wouldn't qualify for Pine Tree. They should still contact us because we can also help refer people to pro bono attorneys. If it's a legal area that we don't handle, we can make referrals to pro bono attorneys.
So like an eviction, if somebody were being evicted, but if they also were being foreclosed on a home.
We do have a foreclosure unit. There's attorneys based out of Portland, but who handle cases throughout the state on foreclosure cases.
Okay.
So like I said, don't let anybody not call just because they're worried about that. Did you guys have enough time with this? And I sent Diana a little handout that has this same information.
So I have a question. So,
Sure.
So when somebody calls, will they be talking to you directly, or is it you call and you make an appointment to talk with somebody? So is it like a warm line, a hotline? What is how does it work?
We call this our call center.
Call center.
So we've expanded the hours for call center. It's handled primarily by our paralegal staff with an attorney supervising. So in cases where somebody's calling with something urgent that they need advice right away about, the attorney supervisor can provide advice over the phone. But what we do is an intake process over the phone. Well, we also used to have walk-in hours. I imagine someday we'll start those back up again. Every office would have walk-in hours, but right now we've just expanded call center, and we do an intake process where we evaluate the legal issue that the person's calling about, their income information, and then that information is forwarded to the office that would be handling it. So whatever county that potential client is living in, it'll get forwarded to our office. The Bangor office every office has a weekly meeting where we go over all the cases that have come in, and then pretty quickly within the week, we just call clients right back. So client might call, if it's something like an eviction happening, you know, the next day, if court for evictions were Monday in Bangor and we got the call on Friday, we'd probably try our best to contact that person by the end of the day on Friday. The intake staff is pretty good about letting us know that somebody needs a call back right away. But if it's something that can wait a week or two, we try to call everybody back within the week. That's essentially the process. It's not a hotline so much as a call center. Did that answer your question? Okay. So you guys probably already know this, but general assistance is run by law by every town in Maine. It's administered through the town offices typically, and it can assist with basic necessities, which are defined by the regulations. Those include things like rent, utilities, medication, groceries, and every town has their own rules, which you have the right to review in the town office. I'm going to talk a little bit about traditional general assistance and what the rules on general assistance are during what I've been calling normal times. And then I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 state of emergency, which has totally changed how GA is being run throughout the state. And so I just wanted to go through a couple of places that folks should call if they're running into problems. We hear at Pine Tree, we hear stories about people being told by a town clerk, like, you're not eligible, I'm not going to be able to give you anything, and folks are not actually making their applications. They're not actually filling out the application. That shouldn't happen. People should be encouraged and empowered to demand to make their application. Whether the person thinks that they won't be eligible, it doesn't really matter. You need to be able to make the application. You have the right to fill out the form. And the important part about that is that if your application is denied, by law, they need to give you a written decision. And that written decision is the only thing that you can use to appeal the decision. So if somebody is administering this at the town office and they don't actually know what the rules are and they get it wrong, but we can't appeal it because we don't have a written decision, that's the end of the road. So you only have 5 business days once you get the written decision. And so it's really important that you first call Pine Tree, because we can always step in and try to help. But if you can't reach us for some reason, just encourage people to submit something handwritten. Make sure they have a copy of it, because you want to be able to document what you've submitted. But just, I want an appeal, or I'd like to appeal this decision, date it and get it into the town office, because that'll preserve your right to appeal the decision. The other important place to call, especially right now, if a town office is closed, not open to the public, that kind of thing, is the DHHS. We call this the warm line or the lukewarm line. It's been better lately, but those are the folks who supervise town administrators. So you can often try to go around the town if you're not getting an answer or you're not able to figure out who's responsible in that town. It's a 1-800 number, and it's been fairly good, especially since the state of emergency has been going on, because so many town offices are closed. And they can also take emergency applications over the phone, which I'll talk about in a second. Okay, so anyone who lives in the town is allowed to go in and make an application. This is traditional GA. This is not emergency GA. What they're going to do is they're going to look at your income over the last 30 days and your projected income over the next 30 days to determine whether your income can meet basic needs. And it's not a very complicated calculation. There's a lot of information on our website, ptla.org, about how that number is calculated. But essentially, if your income is less than the cost of your basic needs, which include heating, fuel, electricity, food, medicine, basic necessities, then they can issue a voucher for whatever it is that you're asking for. The maximum amount of aid on any given voucher is calculated through this formula that they have. But right now, during the state of emergency, those maximum amounts are being disregarded. So nobody should be discouraged from applying right now if they think that they can't get enough to cover their rent or to cover their prescription costs or something like that. It's important to bring in any documentation of income that you have. If somebody's on SSI, they should have a letter from Social Security that states their amount. Any pay stubs or any bank statements, something to show how much money is coming in, that'll help document what your income is. And then in traditional GA, what you'd want to do over the month that you're receiving GA is keep careful track of where you're spending all of your money. Any receipts for anything that you've spent during those 30 days are important to bring back so that you can reapply it the next month. So we talk a little bit about this on our website. It comes up with some frequency, particularly for people who move around often or don't have stable housing. Sometimes towns will tell someone that they can't apply in that town because they don't live there. But the rules actually say that you can apply in the town where you live, where you are a resident, or in the if you don't have a residence, in the town where you intend to live. So sometimes when we have folks who've just experienced an eviction and they're not sure where their next place is going to be, but they're hoping to move to Brewer or Old Town, you can apply in the town where you're planning to go. Especially because in some towns it can be very difficult to get a voucher for a hotel if you are recently experienced an eviction or you're homeless. But if you know of a hotel that might take a GA voucher, it's a good idea to go to that town to apply for GA because that's where you intend to live and that's where you know that you can use your voucher for a place to stay. If you're denied because you're being told that you don't live here, that you're not a resident, but you think that that's incorrect, you should absolutely ask for a written decision, get the written decision and call Pine Tree or submit an appeal right away. This is same thing. I was just talking about this. So these are some of the examples of things to bring in, proof of income for the last 30 days and what you expect to get in the next 30 days. So there's a long list here. It's not everything, it's just some examples of documents that you might want to bring in. Bills, utility bills, those are helpful. And like I said, any receipts that you might have. So during normal GA world, the town office is usually the place where GA is administered. Some towns have it in a different location. Some of the bigger towns have like attorneys on staff who can advise the GA administrators, and that can be really helpful. You don't necessarily have to go through the hotline, but in small towns, it can be really difficult. So right now, you can apply anytime over the phone because all applications for general assistance right now are being treated as emergency applications. And the other thing here, it says that you can apply for general assistance every month, meaning your voucher will be for a 30-day period for whatever it might be for. But you're eligible for 30 days and then you have to reapply. Right now during the state of emergency, it's 60 days. So it's a little bit of a longer period before you necessarily have to come back and reapply.
Is there a limit to the number of months that you can
No.
receive GA, or you just have to, okay.
During normal times, there are, I guess I should say, not that I'm aware of. I think some towns will have different programs that they start to require people to be part of. There's something called workfare, which is where a town, if somebody is able to work but doesn't have work, the town might have a program where somebody's working sort of on a volunteer basis for, it calculates at the, I think it's minimum wage, but I'm not sure, but it's to sort of like pay back the amounts that you're receiving. There are all kinds of exceptions and rules to that. And that is disregarded during the state of emergency. So if you hear of somebody who's being told they have to do workfare, they should call Pine Tree right away. And if you have more questions about that, like if it comes up, somebody should absolutely call us. But I'm not aware of a limit to the number of months, like with TANF, where you can only have it for a certain number of months. I could be wrong about that, but I think just because you have to reapply every single month, they're going to determine whether or not you're eligible based on whether they think that your income, you know, is in relation to your basic necessities. They shouldn't be denying. If it's still an emergency and you still need general assistance, they should still be issuing the vouchers.
Okay.
Okay, so emergency general assistance is available. Right now, like I said, all applications are emergencies, but generally speaking, the way that it works is if you need assistance immediately for, like, you run out of heating oil, you run out of food, you can't afford your prescription medications that you really need, each town has to have some capacity to take an application 24 hours a day. This is where sometimes towns do not have that set up in a way that's actually accessible or helpful to folks. And that's when I would say you should definitely call the 1-800 number, the state hotline. Some towns, what they'll do is they'll have a sign. They're supposed to have a sign on the door of the town office showing where you can apply in an emergency. Often it's the local police station. That's the most common one I've heard of, but they have to have some way to take an application 24 hours a day. So if you guys were interested in finding out what that is, I would encourage you to call the town office during normal hours so that you can find out where in, say, Millinocket or Patton, where the place is that people should go during an emergency. Okay, so this is what we're all like living through right now. All applications, so everything I was talking about with having to document where your income was spent over the last 30 days and what you expect your income to be over the next 30 days, none of that is supposed to be happening right now. Every application is an emergency application until the governor's state of emergency ends, and then it's supposed to go back to traditional GA. Right now, that's going through July 10th. We don't know if she's going to extend it again, but what this means is that they can't, sometimes what GA will do is set an appointment for you in a few days. Right now, they're supposed to take your application the same day that you request one. The eligibility period is now 60 days instead of 30 days, so you don't have to go back and reapply every 30 days. And the maximum levels that they calculate for what you can be given for assistance, those can be disregarded, and they can issue vouchers up to whatever it is that you need to secure housing, food, heat, that kind of thing.
Is there a process for, like, I think in Millinocket, they are only allowing GA calls on Thursdays, 1 day a week. So if we're aware of like a violation of this kind of thing, is there any way to push them?
I would either, so like if you're aware of a person, a specific client that needs assistance on a day that's not Thursday, they should absolutely call the DHHS hotline or call Pine Tree and make sure that there's some way in Millinocket to make an application on another day. So if they've got emergency applications available at the police station, if they've got the number for the hotline posted on the door, they can take an application over the phone right now. And that would probably be fine as long as somebody can make their application by phone any day. If that's the only day that they're doing
that emergency number.
What's that?
I guess we'll have to investigate that emergency number because I'm not sure what their process is for that right now.
Yeah. You might want to call them and just see what should we tell folks that need GA on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because they are not allowed to only take applications 1 day a week.
Yeah, we ran into that. And so I did that. I recommended somebody call and they said, well, we're only open we're only taking applications on Thursdays. So, and they were working from home when the town office was closed and it was a challenge. So yeah, we've had that a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, I would get right on the phone with the HHS. That should not be happening. Okay, so the application decision should be within 24 hours and it should be in writing and it should have the reasons for the denial. And it'll tell you what the decision is for how much GA they'll give you. But if the town tells you, like, we're not going to give you a decision, you're not eligible, there are two things that I want every single person to do, and that is insist that they have the right to make the application. There's a state law that says that you have to take an application. They can't just turn people away, so people should insist on getting their written decisions. And if they just write you a decision saying you're not eligible, then absolutely call Pine Tree first, call the state hotline. But if you can't reach anybody at those places, then you want to submit a written request for an appeal. They might ask for more information. They might ask for more documentation of your income or where it's going. And if it feels like that process is just taking too long and it's not reasonable, definitely, and especially if that's creating an emergency. If, say, you need a rent voucher immediately, otherwise you're going to be looking at getting evicted, you should be, calling the hotline or calling Pine Tree to speed that process along. The next, so this is what I was getting to with like, just tell them you want to apply anyway. You do not care that they think you're going to get denied. Just, I want to make my application, because the only way you can appeal it is if you have the written decision. So you file the appeal, it can be very, very simple. I'd like to appeal this decision, get it in there within the 5 working days after they give you the written decision. Make sure it's dated, make sure you have a copy of it, even a picture of it, something so that you can show that you submitted it. And then the reason that this is so important is that you have this fair hearing right. So you can have a hearing with somebody that did not make that decision. It should not be the town clerk that said, no, we're not going to take your application. It should be some other person that was not involved in the decision. And I think this is particularly important just because so many small towns, everyone knows each other, and there's always busybodies that think like, well, I saw your new 4-wheeler, and so I know that you shouldn't be getting this and whatever. And so somebody who did not make the decision should be evaluating the application objectively and making the appeal decision, not the person who already denied it because they made up their mind as soon as the person walked in. And I should give more credit to the people. I think that sometimes they just do the numbers wrong. Sometimes you might lose your appeal, but you have the right to go through that process and to sort of explain why this is an emergency or why you need the GA voucher. Things might have changed. It's just, everybody should be going through this process because it can help the town sort of learn through going through this process what the rules are. Okay, so the fair hearing process, first and foremost, call Pine Tree. We would love to help out with these cases. We would love to represent folks. You have the right to bring an attorney with you. They're intimidating, so if you can connect folks with us, we're happy to help with this part of the process. I know I'm like just pitching Pine Tree over and over, but we can really help with these kinds of cases. You have to have the hearing, let me see, what is the number of days? What does it say? The hearing must be held within how many days? 5, right? Your faces are in front of my thing. So you can bring all of the documentation that you would have submitted with your application, all of the same receipts and income and pay stubs or bank statements or any documentation that you brought in with you to the application, bring to the fair hearing. You can bring witnesses, you can bring people to support you. You also have the right to question the person that made the decision. You can ask them questions if they have witnesses as well about why they denied the application. They should be tape recording the hearing because at the end of that process, you still also have a right to go to court. You can appeal it all the way to the district court. Some towns will have this hearing in front of the Board of Selectmen. Sometimes it'll be a couple of people from the town, from like the city office. Sometimes they'll hire an outside person. There's different ways that different towns do this, but the important part is that it's somebody who was not involved in the original decision and who's objective. So again, I encourage everybody to call Pine Tree if you get down to this part of the process. Definitely reach out to us because we can help folks who are over 65 are eligible for assistance through legal services for the elderly, and they might be able to provide representation as well. So this was just my last pitch for try not to, you don't have to go on your own. There are people who are willing to help with these kinds of things. Even if you can't reach Pine Tree or legal services for the elderly, just somebody from your organization, if you wanted to go to help somebody through that process. There's lots of good advice on our website about how to get ready for a hearing like this. So I encourage everybody to go to ptla.org. I didn't talk about the sort of complicated formulas for calculating GA maximum amounts, partly because they're not using that right now, but also because it's just, it takes a long time. But all of that's on our website, and you can go through it, and you can sort of take the decision from the town about your GA application, compare it to that information. You can look at the regulations online. There's all kinds of stuff that you can look at to see if they got it right or wrong. And I think one of the hardest parts for folks is thinking that because somebody at the town has told you XYZ, you aren't eligible or you can't make this application, that can be really intimidating, and it can be disempowering. So folks should always feel like they can access the information, access our educational materials. We can give advice over the phone, even if we aren't going to represent somebody at a hearing or they don't want us to. We can sort of walk you through how to prepare for the hearing. And that can just educating folks on what their right is to access this public benefit is just a huge accomplishment on its own.